Moving on to Micronesia, and oh man, that was a lot of fun to see that because it was really interesting to see these two tribes going at each other. And even though you could tell that production did have a bias for the favorites because Jeff was always like, in a shocky development, the favorites lose. And you definitely got more strategic mindsets on the favorites tribe than the fans tribe, even though a lot of what happened on the favorites tribe was like the fans tribe, where there was a lot of personal dynamics mixed into it. It was just fun to see this whole group interact, both as opposite tribes and with each other. Then the game got shook up on its head multiple times over with the Exile Island and Idol play dynamics going on here, and the merge with all those blind sides. Like, who would have seen that coming? Just, it was blind side after blind side, and that was just a lot of fun to see. Although the end does have a problem, because one thing that is always going to be controversial about this season is that, was it always going to be a final two, or did the fact that free people be medevaced for this season result in them changing it so it would be a final two? Now, granted, since we've seen this particular challenge be used as the last immunity challenge in a couple of other seasons, US and international, since that gives a little more indication that originally it was going to be a final three and then they changed it. But if that's the case, why don't they just admit it? You know? Especially since in Philippines you had a medevac bit that could have altered the season, and they chose not to alter it. But then again, Philippines had 18 people, this had 20. Yeah, this show really needs to figure out how to deal with 20 people effectively. They still can't figure out how to do that, and that's disappointing. Nah. But I really did enjoy it, and let me make one thing clear to you about that last bit that I forgot. I'm not a die-hard Suri fan, it's just that I want that question answered. And no, I'm not someone that says that Pav and Amanda didn't deserve it, because that was a very interesting final two dynamic. Well, they had to really decide which one of those two was better. And you have to remember, there was a good possibility that if the favorites had gone to another tribal council, that those two would have been in trouble, because they weren't strongly viewed on the favorites that much. It was just Ozzy and James. Well, no. Ozzy more or less blindly protecting Amanda, then Pav throwing herself at James, but she admitted that that's pretty much what she was doing. And Pav does have the bit of bringing Natalie and Alexis over to the favorites tribe after the merge and solidifying that bond with them, but it did happen kind of suddenly in the edits. And then I wish I could remember how Suri solidified herself in that group, unless there was a dynamic that happened just before the merge started that I forget. I don't know. Unlike most of these other seasons, I've only seen this season once, and it was about 5 or 6 months ago. It took me forever to get around to watching this season and the next few that I have to talk about, but I really did feel like that this was an excellent season, and I really wish I had watched this when everyone else had. Gaboon. Not the biggest fan of it, but it's more how the end result turned out, because the in-game dynamics were actually interesting, and this was a decent cast. The problem is a lot of it's been forgotten, and we have this very odd situation because the theme for the pre-merge bit was that Coda just dominates challenge after challenge after challenge, and even the two challenges that they lost, they actually almost won one of them, and Bob just couldn't figure out the math puzzle before Ken did, and even then he understood how it worked, he just could not solve it. So you have Coda dominating in everything, then a chance double tribal council and second swap that no one saw coming convinces, puts the remaining members of Fawn in a more powerful position to where they're able to take control of the game and then vote out the Coda power players. But then, once you're down to the last Coda member, that Coda member goes on a winning streak, and then the power players on Fawn get voted out by the weak members of Fawn. So by the time you're at the end, suddenly that reversal of power has actually almost reversed itself back. And then you get the last Coda member winning the game, Bob, but he barely got any camera time when he was on Coda. He was part of the decision making because he voted the right person out during Coda's first tribal council, and the plan for the second tribal, it wasn't just random that it ended up being 4-3. They wanted it to be a 4-3 vote, though there definitely was some dissension as to which one of the two that they wanted to get rid of. So it's just kind of odd because the underdog story ends up not really being underdog after all. So it's just like, how are we supposed to feel about this? And I knew that this would happen when I was watching it, and I was just like, huh. So the good guys technically win, but... It just doesn't feel... Well, the only real word I can put at the end of that sentence is right, but I don't really want to say that word. I just can't think of anything else to say, you know? And I'm definitely not the only one that feels that way about this. There's definitely tons of other people that are disappointed about the outcome because of, you know, liking someone on the jury better than that, last three, be it the Coda people, Kenny or Crystal, or heck, even Maddie. Right. So I don't totally want to say that this is a good season, but I don't totally want to say it's a bad season either, because production didn't do anything to foul this up. It's just how it coincidentally turned out. It's a bit of an odd feeling. Just like with this next season, Token Teens. But I actually did enjoy this season, but it's odd because even though we have... This is set in the newer school era of the show. Well, you've got hidden idols out of both camps. They didn't actually matter that much, and the game behaved a lot more like old school, where there wasn't a swap, and people tried to be more loyal to themselves. But then, after Joe gets medevaced, we get a very odd situation where, even though there was no swap tribal lines, they just break off, and we get a very unique group dynamic between everybody, where you've got Coach and Tyson doing their own thing, JT, Steven, and Taj doing their bits, and JT gradually, gaining popularity as the season goes along, because for most of it, I didn't think that there was that much to him, but then I guess just the right things happened, and all of a sudden he's in an, oh my god, insanely powerful position. But then you've got Aaron on the reverse side, where pre-merge there was actually something to her and her not totally fitting in with that tribe, and she would have been voted out in episode 3 had what's his face, Jerry not fallen ill. But yeah, they could have done better with her, don't get me wrong. And here's the unique thing. I was told going into the season, that Jalapal was the good tribe and Timbira was the bad tribe. Here's the thing, though. First few episodes, I was like, I think I'd rather be on the Timbira tribe. After that, though, it became more even, but just... that was an odd feeling where I actually felt like the bad tribe was, the better players. And given how when I first watched Heroes vs. Villains and didn't have the greatest exposure to Tyson on that season, which caused me to not focus as much on him on Blood vs. Water than I thought I would have, I looked at Tyson here and I'm like, okay, even though Coach is labeled as the bad guy, Tyson is clearly the one with the brains in this operation. Coach, he's not a real villain, he's just a goof with a couple of jerk moments. I'm like, seriously, dude, like, who plays the game like that? Just what? I mean, like, I was sorry to see him go, because I would have rather they eliminated Aaron and got Coach to day 38, so that's where he could have experienced everything, and then the warrior slays the dragon, as Coach kept saying it, even though it was Steven that actually voted him out. JT was with Coach. So it's a very interesting season, but the problem is the group dynamic is not typical of a Survivor season. That's both good and bad, because you need to hear a lot from these group of people to fully understand why they behaved the way that they did. It's kind of like that with One World, except a lot of people hate One World, and I was going to say that the One World cast is more positive towards each other, but now I actually think that this cast is more positive. Wouldn't know. Need to get some more insight into that. I'm sure Steven and a Coach can do that. Okay. But it's a good season. Don't get me wrong on that. Although I forgot to mention JT triumphing over Steven, I kind of understand it, and at the same time I kind of don't, because those two, they definitely did get really lucky. Steven, very awkward at the beginning, but got better, and then shoots himself in the foot. JT, invisible for a bit, gets lucky, and then pretty much avoids shooting himself in the foot, though I know that there was one decision that he had more power with. Whose idea was it to take out Taj? That's a good question. Okay, moving on from Tocantins now to Samoa here. I gotta admit, I wasn't expecting to like the season, but it was less bothering than I thought it would be, because it was kind of moody, but that had more to do with the fact that it was raining a lot, and also there were subtle hints, if you knew the outcome to the season, that Galoo would gradually start having trouble. And we've never had a season where we have a tribe do bad before the merge and then do good in the merge. No, don't say Gaboon. they got lucky with that double tribal and then the second swap. Had any one of those three things not happened, Sugar votes Ace out instead of Crystal, I think it was. Coda voting out Dan instead of Susie, and then that other swap. Had any of those things not happened, that would have been it for fun, okay? Okay, this, totally different. 404 infiltrates the Galoo bits and manipulates them the correct way, getting rid of them until suddenly they're in power, then they can just sweep away the rest. And even then, had Russell not developed problems as the season went along, you would have had Shambo leaving the game instead of him. Galoo still would have gone 8-4, and then odds are they would have stayed together, even though Russell was not that great of a leader, I gotta admit. Yeah, they had respect for him, but he definitely was not making too great of decisions. It's just the fact that they kept winning, so everyone was like, yeah, we're with ya. And then moving on to Russell Hantz. I gotta be honest, I thought that I wouldn't like him, but I actually do, tip the imaginary hat to him in some regards here, because even though he did bad jury management and was kind of odd at his gameplay, because even though he forms bonds with most of the women on 404 at the beginning of the season, you could tell that his true alliances in the game were with Mick and Jason. But then, once you get to the point where Brett is going on that immunity streak, he gets rid of Jason for his head not being in the game, and then dismisses Mick as and says that Mick has a good ability to beat him at the end when Mick actually had no chance of winning it, and then dismisses Natalie as being useless when people saw benefits to her because she did help turn the tide on Eric, and then matter a little bit in one other thing. I forget what it was. But what I'm getting at is that even though he was doing all that, there is a little bit of there was an odd feeling of respect that he had for the castaways, and that some of the castaways gave back to him. Because even though Brett voted for Natalie, I think he actually did like Russell to some degree, and like Eric, his attitude seemed to be that he didn't like Russell, but everything that I saw on the show indicated for quite a while that he was going to vote for Russell if it came down to that. So, yeah, Russell's gameplay in Samoa definitely had problems, but there is some positiveness to him, especially since we've seen people do that style of game and do it in a much better way, you know? Plus, he is the first person to get the hint, hey, yeah, there's no Exile Island anymore, and these idols are at camp, let's just go around and look. Because I can't tell you how many times now that people have found an idol without clues, I've lost count. So, we can thank him for a few things that are shaped in the course of this game. Yeah, a lot of us didn't like it back then, but again, that's because it was the first time that this happened. So that has to do with some of it. And I do understand the decision to vote Natalie over Russell, 100% understand it, but you can tell that production is like, oh, we hate the fact that you voted someone other than Russell, and we're going to make it obvious. Like, this is, I think, the one and only time that they've done that, where their preferred contestant didn't win, and they're like, we're going to rub it in your face. And finally, moving on to Heroes vs. Villains. Like with All-Stars, as I've said, I have a love-hate relationship with this season, but on the rewatch, I got to admit, I understood a lot of things that happened during this season, both because now I've seen everyone play in every season, but also we've seen this style of gameplay normalized. And I think that's why I was complaining about this back in the day, because I wasn't used to seeing this. This gameplay is normal for us now. So that's why I don't think I was that bothered by a lot of it. Oh, sure, some comments maybe like Toby, Tom, and Colby on the Heroes tribe is kind of stupid because they're like, hey, you're letting yourself being talked around. Don't fall for that, when they do almost the exact same thing as rebuttals at Tribal Council. But that whole Heroes tribe was just full of alphas that just could not work together to save their lives. And then on the Villains tribe, interesting dynamics between them, but did you have to put Russell in there when no one had seen his season? Like, literally, all they say is, he's one of the top 5 villains this game has ever seen. Nice. Ugh. You should never do a season that involves returning players if people haven't seen their season. It always lets them get further than they would otherwise. I hate when they do that. And Danielle, she wasn't that great of a casting, but I don't think Corinne would have been that great for this season anyway. Bringing in Natalie from Micronesia, I think, would have been a better choice, because she was there along with Eric as an alternate, just in case someone dropped out. And then Candace as a hero? What? Seriously, she should have been on the Villains tribe, and then you should have put Sandra on the Heroes tribe like you were originally going to do. Like, why are you... Like, Sandra didn't even have that much either way, if you ask me, alright? So just put her on the Bleeding Heroes tribe, even though she, in hindsight, does fit the villainess role better. She does, but... just... all she really did was go after fair play, and then let Krista take the heat for her burying a machete or hiding the fish or something like that. So there are all issues there, but the gameplay is excellent, and I do understand why Sandra got the win in this case, because there were problems with Pav's gameplay. I can't totally describe them to you. I guess it's just more because she didn't have the biggest moves on her resume, even though she was more or less in a fight to stay alive the entire time that she was there. But I definitely think Candace should have voted for Pav, because she really only voted for Sandra because, like with Colby, they're like, yeah, you were right, Sandra, we should have listened to you. And like Candace, also, why did you just flip back to the villains? You knew that they were going to play you. She really should have known that. Did I get everything in for this? Yeah, I got a good enough bit. Okay, going real fast for the, whoa, no, go from worst to best, sorry, okay. So ranking these 20 seasons from worst to best. 20, Thailand. 19, well, cases, you can guess why. 18 is All-Stars, might change that, like I said, love-hate relationship. 17, Exile Island / Panama. 16 is Samoa, because of production, you know, really making it obvious, hey, Russell should have won. And it is negative. Africa, just because of, you know, the bad location and kinda on the edit. It's not the contestant's fault. 14 is Fiji, you can guess why. 13 is Gaboon. 12 is Australia, because of the alumni dropping it time and time again. 11 is HVV, that might change. It's definitely higher than I expected to rank it. Come on. 10 is Cook Islands. Again, I do feel a little bit bad for dropping it like that, but that mutiny, it hurt the gameplay of the season, it did. 9 is Vanuatu. Liked it a lot better the second time around. 8 is Togantines. You got that interesting group dynamic that's different. 7 is Guatemala, like it more than the crowd. 6 is Pearl Islands. The alumni have dropped it down a little. 5 is China. 4 is the Amazon, more because contestants had a tougher time with the location in Amazon than they did in China. It's pretty much the same strengths. 3 is Micronesia. I definitely would have liked it better if I had seen the season when it aired. Knowing the results, it definitely hurt the season. 2 is Palau, mostly because of the fact that everyone in the dog was picking the winner. And then 1 is Borneo, but that's more because of a critique thing rather than a personal bit. Because if we're going personal, put Micronesia as number 1, yeah? I'm not putting Borneo first just because it's the first season and it's the Holy Grail. I'm not like that. It's just a critique thing that's dropping Palau and Micronesia. Well, sorry that you had to sit through a longer video this time, but hey, now I finally reviewed everything for the US version of Survivor. Yes.